I am the last person that anyone goes to be brought up to speed, to get the up and up. In fact, an Israeli Defense Forces spy in Pittsburgh from the University of Pittsburgh, which is an occupied zone by Israel, named Larry Lederer, called me up on the phone to get my advice once so he could feel better about doing the exact opposite. And so if you're turning to me for any kind of counsel, advice, or guidance, it means that you've been disappointed by everyone and everything else, because I'm the last person that anybody ever goes to for that sort of focus. But what I propose to do is to explain to you why I think that Elon Musk and Sherman Alexie, if you don't know who he is, he's a sort of cartoon novelist from the sacred Native American tradition who lumbers around Seattle as a sort of honcho. Are cut from the same cloth. Musk and Alexie are cut from the same cloth. They both consider themselves to be happiness realists, novel individuals. If you look at the characteristics that come to the situation that Ringo Starr created around me, my name is James Crary. There's a postcard somewhere that Robert Fripp wrote to James McRyland Crary because I didn't sense it was something I should keep. I gave it back. You find that there's a hidden story, there's what's known as a hidden transcript. And it is to say that the realists of this world stake their claim against any alternative reading of the world other than winners and losers. It's an anti-story. It's meant to convey that it doesn't exist, that there's no such story. And that if you cling to the idea that it is the truth, you're just a loser and you deserve to die. This is something the Musk and Sherman Alexie have worked out together. And the reason I know this is because the Green Party and the Black Panthers and the extreme right-wing Catholic militarists, the fascists, worked together on setting me up with the disappointment of my life in order to make a mockery of me, that I was only after a virgin and that I was a two-timer and that therefore AIDS was called for as an attack phenomenon. And they told everyone who was otherwise affected by the situation or aware of anything about me that I could have saved John Lennon. And this has perpetuated Trump's power to the present moment. The fact that the Black Panthers worked with Ronald Reagan, George Bush, that the Native Americans propped Saul Brecker of the IDF, a pornographer who tortured and trafficked me as a child, who lied through the teeth, both to me and about me, with lackluster thieves like Walter Sandusky and Vince Irini. Predators who brag of attacking someone who's completely bystander, helpless, and innocent for $20, $5, man. I'll hit him. Give me $10 and I'll hit him. Is the way they talk about the situation. So let's examine the factuality of it. Oh, we know they got a great charge of saying it was the white man getting the white comeuppance. Okay. They got a big charge out of that. The indecency of the way they treated Jimmy Carrere in Pittsburgh didn't ruffle a feather of Sherman Alexie's headdress because it was the white man. And he said, yes, sir, clicked his heels to Reagan and Clint Eastwood. We will make him cry. And how did they do it? They used a nerve agent designed by Bernard Wattenmaker, an Attica State Prison psychiatrist, and Cyril Wecht, using a hidden spectrochemical laboratory buried hidden in the back sticks of Wilkinsburg, PA. Homewood, PA, I should say. Homewood, where the Homewood trilogy was written by the man who wrote Philadelphia Fire and Brothers and Keepers. And of course, that Philadelphia hardcore black culture was in on this. They didn't care what happened to me. They'd do away with the white as soon as they would honk their nose in a hanky. So they teamed up and they created a death row and so on. They said I deserved it because I wanted to be a playboy. And what did they do? They used this neurochemical, the spectrochemical. And the language of the text is clear. They tortured me. They nearly killed me, forcing me to swallow it. And then they surrounded it with the happy airs of hippiedom as it poisoned me neurologically in a hidden injury that they then played with and called it Alexie's Corner. The man who was jealous while they made a play toy out of the woman he loved. In a sacred American cult of torture. And they accused me of so many abnormal things that were grossly violations of any standard of decency that they and got away with it, that they were overjoyed. They poisoned me in the mouth. And they celebrated. Yay! We got the white. And Reagan slapped five with them. Arnold Schwarzenegger slapped five with them. He said, went to the Rock to hide his face. Rock cried out, no hiding place. And Arnold Schwarzenegger said, my father was a Nazi. So you go over there and listen to Greta Thunberg. She's slapping five with Sherman Alexie at the Greta Thunberg barbershop. Arnold Schwarzenegger says, my father was a Nazi. And Sherman Alexie says, them swastikas are sacred African symbols of the ancient ancestors. And Ralph Proctor's buddies come shaking their spear. Don't you laugh, because honorary the African warriors like Teresa Hines will put you in Robert Kennedy's blender. So we get the picture of the neatness, the cuddliness, the coziness of Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and Sherman Alexie's alliance in Seattle. And what do they have here? A flashcard, a magic mountain. Do you know that Sherman was counseled to demonstrate an atom bomb in the Sacred Mountain? And the dome. Did you know there's a Hiroshima dome? A lot of people seem not to know these basic facts of American foreign relations. And they've got a BB Berlin brewery down at the corner, BB, like BB and Natanya, who Berlin Brewery or something. Right there at the Tacoma Dome in the Magic Mountain with the flash car. And they steal an airplane and crash it into an island, some gay guy does. And they blow up with the supernova. They blow up the flash at Lebanon port. Boom! And Shifty's running around campus like this while COVID starts up and there's smoke wildfires everywhere. And they're doing like this here, they're doing like that there. And Trump is laughing. Clap, clap for Sherman Alexie. I'm going to get to lead the powwow. What does this mean? What is the meaning of this? Yoko Ono worked with Gail Burstyn, who wrote the script that Ringo Starr claims with Brian Eno, I need to be punished and they gave me Parkinson's. They should encourage the people who made me deaf because I'm an anti-Lenin spy who doesn't like human trafficking, who doesn't like pornographic genocide, who asked, why does Gail Burstyn's likeness appear on the cover of a 1979 Robert Fripp album with David Byrne, whose drummer was a neighbor in my neighborhood of Cyril Wecht and Gail Burstyn? Why is she on the cover in 1979? And why are you helping her map out a storyline that shows that you are selling the idea that she was involved in the murder of John Lennon, who didn't die? He pulled a Houdini. That's the invisible story that no one's allowed to talk about. Because if they talked about Gail Burstyn's involvement, I tried to get arrested in 1993. And I warned that those documents were an Israeli manuscript planning revenge for Auschwitz. Who held their nose but the Palestinian feminists for Yoko? They didn't want Sherman Alexie's voodoo doll to come over to them in a swoon and say, you're so pretty, I feel so happy around you. Sabi Sabs says no. Sonia Tola says no. Pittsburgh has it all wired up with Martin Andelman and Andrea Swimmer. Guess what she did to him when he was 13? This is the politics of University of Pittsburgh. It's Russia. Trump, Sabi Sabs, Sherman Alexie, North Korea, they're all going hip hip for the Two Virgins pussy ball game of Barack Obama. So the story that you're not allowed to recognize or tell or understand isn't just Lennon Houdini, because he's the one who came up with Two Virgins. That was the name of his record. And it's emblazoned semiotically in everything. They'll say, oh, that's not Gail Burstyn. It's her likeness that's on the cover. Well, that traces to Tammo DeJong's use of archetypes, and like the language system that's in the letters nearly killed me, forced me to swallow. The language texture of the script is what is important. The imagery that Tammo DeJong represents his ideas by are archetypes. That's why a Native American hustler working with Larry Flint and Ringo Starr is worth 25 Jimmy Crary's, because Jimmy Crary is just a little Woody from a box of Cheerios. He's a nothing. So, and they make things up like, oh, he testified. That means he harbors aggression. And you can't rationally vie with these material interests, because they take any cock and bull story they dream up, and instead of reporting it to the police department, reporting it to social workers, reporting it to the hospital, and expecting it to be processed normally, they file counterattacks in psychiatric wards saying he believes he was kidnapped and tortured as a child. They literally put that in print. I could show it to you. That's how psychiatrically demented, how diseased Seattle administration is. Truly deranged Seattle administration is. They put in print he believes that he was kidnapped and tortured as a child, as though I made it up, as though I hallucinated it. Seattle is criminally insane. Both Sherman Alexie and Elon Musk are deranged individuals. And the language system and the way that they went about building this concept of an ark allowed them to go in the direction of, stirring up the pot with, COVIDs and stuff. And you're not supposed to acknowledge that it's a rational concern, that people like RFK talk openly of an ark. And how do we avoid genocide? By doing our 40 ministrations of prostrations before the Abdul the terrorist on KDK radio, who is Adam Eisenstadt and Israel Defense Forces ghostwriter for Donald Trump. And never, ever, ever sleeping with anybody unless you're married to them. And don't get confused about neuropsychiatry. It's not out to help you. It's out to condition you so that they can claim genocide as therapy. That's what they did. They committed a pornographic genocide on Mount Desert Island and claimed that it was therapy. And then when they got caught talking in two tongues with forked tongue, if it's therapy, then why is it bad? I thought therapy was meant to help you. It's meant to be good. They castrate their victim and say, never again will you ever have another girlfriend. And they get this from saying, I don't deserve one, because of the rejection tears of rejection and physical suffering that they inflicted with a nerve agent that they implanted. And even though I go out day to day, I go get a donut and coffee at the senior center and I sit for hours. I can't do much because I'm paralyzed from Parkinson's. I come home, I cook, I have some popcorn at the end of the day. I sit here, my phone rings, I usually try to answer or at least reply to who calls me. I do art, I write poems for the poor people in Gaza. I answer and read replies to me on social media. Even though I'm completely approachable, they have an absolute sadistic doctrine that the only justification for any kind of contact with me is to challenge me on behalf of hate criminals who have tortured me. That's all. They reply in encrypted incognito messages with the first names of people who they've canvassed. Come up with a challenge so we can zap Queerball with a challenge. And they say people who are not like me, people who don't want to know the truth, who don't go chasing rainbows of insight, who don't try to write poetry that isn't conditioned by either of the partners in the two wings of this new movement called the Greens. Is unhappy. People who do that are unhappy. Jimmy Carrey is a crying soul, night and day. He's terribly unhappy. So if you're like us, you want to be happy. You want to be a winner. You want to forget these challenges to indecency, because it is indecent. It is indecent for Seattle to lure me here with a group that calls themselves AdWas. the walrus, ad was, and say, we will give you protection from abuse if you come to Seattle from Pittsburgh. And then poison me in the mouth and put images with Ichiro Suzuki with Mac on his collar of psychedelic Bushnells, Aaron Bushnells going up in psychedelic flames, and give me Parkinson's and ban me from school. It's a gross indecency. When I went back to school, I made Phi Theta Kappa. I won the poetry contest. They said I was a troublemaker, could only fail. It's a gross indecency not to look at the evidence. They say, well, we don't have to look at the evidence because of what you're saying. They wouldn't look at the evidence when I thought it was evidence in John Lennon's murder, which is what they're selling, that he died and I was somehow negligent. That's what Brian Eno has capitalized on. They wouldn't look at the evidence then, on October 17th, 1993, when I tried to talk to the police about it. They wouldn't look at it then. Do you think they're going to look at it now that I've realized and uncovered the truth that John Lennon pulled a Houdini? Of course not. They're going to continue to sell what Gail Burston wrote as justified. So John Lennon was killed by this woman, and that's justified? No, they have a sort of slipknot, a switcheroo. It's not that it was justified that they killed John Lennon. It was justified that they killed everybody else because Lennon was killed. Oh, it's justified that they killed everybody else because Lennon was killed. And it turns out that Lennon pulled a Houdini. That's clever. It's sneaky is what it is. They came up with a system that if you don't go along with it, you're betraying the 60s. You're betraying Lennon. Oh, so you're betraying Lennon by protesting the people who killed him, right? I mean, protesting the people who didn't really kill him. Oh, and it reduces Americans' history to this deranged fit by a Ripper Hatter named Ringo Starr. He's just a Ripper Hatter, and he's having some kind of seizure right before all of our eyes. And it's dominating global international security because they're not going to allow us to understand why there are two Vlads duking it out. Because two Vlads are like two impalers.